Hello and welcome to a video showing Subnautica on my reasonably priced PC, which is the 1050 Ti, i5-3330 at 3GHz and 8GB of DDR3 RAM. Now the graphics card does have 4GB of RAM, I did forget to mention that, but now you know. So Subnautica is an early access game and it hasn't had that much optimization done to it. It has a few patches done, but as of this point of this video, when I'm recording it, they are going to start working on performance and optimization. So what can we expect from the game currently? So if I go and bring the options up, we are running at a native 1080p resolution, we have our VSync enabled, and we have got a solid 60 frames a second currently. So in the graphics options, we have custom settings, we have no color grading, because why would you? They don't look that nice anyway. And in the advanced, the water quality is high, the AA is on FX AA, and the actual quality of it is low because I honestly can't tell the difference between low and medium. So there's no point in having it on medium because that's just going to waste resources. We've got bloom tons on, lens dirt, depth of field, motion blur quality is on low, AO is on low, screen space reflections is turned off because that is a massive drag on this system. Chromatic abbreviation is turned off because it looks like shit, and dithering is turned on. So that is the actual settings, but what about the game? So depending on whether this is recording or not, there should be a frame counter in the top right hand corner, and it's currently saying a lovely 60 frames a second while I'm standing in here. But let's climb up the ladder and head outside. So here we are outside. We took a little dip in the frame rate there as we climbed out, which dropped to 53 frames a second, but now we're back at 60 frames a second as a whole. As you can see, the water doesn't look that great in this, but hey, I mean, we'll take it. One of the biggest problems that you're going to find using a system similar to this is whenever you like enter or exit the water, enter a vehicle, etc, you are going to take a massive dip in the frame rate, but that's generally about it in terms of massive spikes. So if we jump in the water, as you can see there, I haven't really done anything and I just lost 10 frames a second for no apparent reason. So let's now head into the water. And you can see when I jumped into the water, hopefully this is showing, I dropped down to 40 frames a second. In the water itself, it's kind of variable depending on what's going on your screen, because currently I'm sitting around 50 frames a second, and it is jumping between 45 and 60 at the moment. So if I just ride around here, it's now going back up to 60, it's now dropped back down to 40. So it's all over the place in terms of performance, but it's still above 30, and it is still very good. The time of day does have a massive influence on your actual frame rate, because before when I was recording it was at 60 frames a second, but now the sun's starting to go down and the actual lighting is now starting to kick up, it's starting to drop quite considerably. So we head over here to the giant monster thing over here. He's quite friendly, by the way, he'll just make a few noises, but if we go near him you can see the frame rate is starting to drop quite a lot here. We're at 30 frames a second, and yeah, what I will say is, do bear in mind that I am recording with ShadowPlay and OBS currently. OBS is for the webcam, and ShadowPlay is for the game itself, so I say maybe add a couple 10 to 15 frames a second at most. But yeah, as we're going around this massive beastie, our frame rate is starting to tank, although it did temporarily recover back to 60, so these big things, especially with a lot of detail on them, especially in this kind of lighting, is going to
supports extensive biodiversity and connects to a number of small cave networks.
Okay, that's lovely. Thank you, computer. But yeah, around big creatures, you are going to see quite heavy drops. You could lower the graphics a bit more to get a more stable frame rate, but honestly, it seems fine as it is. So I'm going to head back to the little pod now, and we're going to spawn a vehicle. So while I'm going back here, there is a few things that you should know about this game. Is the game loads in chunks, and when a chunk loads, you will get some spikes in the frame rate, and I think that is regardless of your PC capabilities, you will have that anyway, and that's something that they need to iron out itself. Now, much like when the world loads in chunks, when you spawn in vehicles, let me spawn in a sea moth, there is quite a massive delay in the frame rate. But yeah, once again, do bear in mind that I'm recording using two different programs here, so the frame rate is going to take a natural, maybe 10, 15 frame rates, like lower than it should be. So over here we're going to head into the sea moth, and we're going to go quite fast, just to try and show you the type of frame rates in a fast vehicle. So riding around in the little Seamoth currently. Now, in case you are wondering, it is entirely CPU dependent in this game. It's RAM and CPU dependent. One of the things I have noticed with this game, which is generally because it's in still a early access state and it hasn't been properly optimized, is the shadows for most things are completely loaded in, whether you're near them or not. In most games, shadows only generally appear if you get close to them, but in Subnautica at this point in time, the shadows for most things are going to be like added in, regardless of if you're staring at them or close to them, or whatever. We're quite close to the Aurora at the moment. The frame rate itself is still sticking to around about 45 to 50 frames a second. If I wasn't recording, this would be quite close to 60. Another thing to bear in mind with a system like this is dust. So here we have a lovely little sand shark, and when he starts to kick up dust, we do drop down to a 29 frames a second, but it goes no lower than that. That seems to be quite a common theme with this computer. If you ever played World of Warcraft and you know the Tectis boss fight, when he does his upheaval, he kicks up a ton of particles like during his attack, which will cripple this system quite considerably. But yeah, we're now like riding around here. There's not much detail around here at all. There should be like a massive creature around here somewhere, but we are like at 60 frames a second while recording using 2 different programs. So that is it for Subnautica on the 1050 Ti. It does run at quite close to 60 frames a second with these settings. So if you have a much stronger CPU than me, a much faster CPU, then you are going to get a lot more frame rates running at these settings when you're just out and about. But as a whole, you shouldn't have too much of a problem if you're using quite a similar system with a 1050 Ti 4 gigs. If you are using a card with less than 4 gigs, then you will have to drop the resolution of the game to around about 900p, maybe even all the way down to 720p. But that entirely depends on what kind of graphical settings you want to play it at. Anyway, thank you all for watching, and I shall be back with another video some point soon. And hopefully, if I ever play Subnautica again, the stupid computer can stop interrupting me when I'm talking. Anyway, bye bye.